r/ask Reddit. What's a real thing that you always thought was fake when you were younger? Tumbleweed. I thought it was only in the Western movies. Try living in Arizona. Every time I have a gunfight in front of the saloon, one rolls by. Same. And then I drove cross country and encountered them in the wild. I literally had to pull my car over because I was so shocked. I dated a girl who broke out in laughter when I pointed out a tumbleweed. I was like, WTF. She said she always thought it was fake and her family always used it as a reference to make fun of someone whose joke didn't hit. Night skies where you can see hundreds of stars. Light pollution is a beach. We live in New Zealand so can see heaps of stars. One night we were looking at them when my brother said, funny how there's always a cloud over that part of the stars. It was the Milky Way. He was about 17. Even so, they're replacing sodium vapor streetlights with LEDs that eliminate a lot of the orange glow in the sky, but the difference between the center city and middle of nowhere is pretty pronounced. You still see some stars even in the middle of the biggest cities, but it took until a few years back when I was camping in Fiordland, probably 40 kilometers from the nearest electric light bulb, for me to look up and have a holy shit moment seeing the galactic arc from horizon to horizon and the sky absolutely filled with points of light. Not me, but my grandmother. When I was younger and desperately wanted to be a paleontologist, she always looked at me like she thought I was nuts. A couple of years ago, it turned out that she thought dinosaurs weren't real and were something that were made up for TV shows, like that Pokemon thing. It took until I was 12 to be taken seriously when I said I want to be a paleontologist, because my grandma also thought dinosaurs were made up, like dragons. And to be fair, I was almost as obsessed with dragons. I just didn't say I wanted to study those dragons for a job. Currently I want to work on tiny mammals because my thesis is pretty awesome. So my mother-in-law thinks dinosaurs and people lived at the same time. My oldest daughter, who is 11, has wanted to be a paleontologist since she was 3. Last year, Mill bought her a dinosaur book for Christmas. I looked through it later and there were pictures of men with dinosaurs. It was published by the people who run the Creation Museum. I told my daughter it was inaccurate. If anyone wondered, she already knew. When I was a child, I had no idea that people lived in big cities. I thought they were just where people worked and people attended professional sporting events, and that they were just empty at night. Well, downtown Cleveland is like that. Nobody lives there anymore. It's too crowded. I'm from Norway and someone convinced me that the indigenous people from the northern parts called Sami were a mythological people. It took years and a Sami classmate for me to realize they are real. I'm an English teacher in Vietnam and there was a section in my students' course book about the Sami people. I'm not sure why though. Seems like very random group of people for a Vietnamese child to learn about. So now, there are kids in Vietnam who know that the Sami people really like reindeer and their meat. Bedbugs. My mom would always say, nighty night, sleep tight, don't let the bedbugs bite. I had no idea they were real until I was in my 30s. There's a second part to the jingle if they do. Grab a shoe and hit them till they're black and blue. Ugh. The first time I saw bedbugs was when this 99 years old lady from my church died and I was gifted a bedroom set. We loaded it up in the back of my dad's truck and took it home. When we went to unload it there were probably thousands of bedbugs crawling from the mattress. It was promptly dumped. That's snowflakes. Snowflake actually look the way they are portrayed. I grew up in a temperate area with no snow, and just kind of assumed that snowflakes were just balls of frozen water and the intricate designs were just artistic interpretation. Like stars don't really have 5 points. It wasn't until I moved to the East Coast for college and a snowflake landed on me and I got to look at it up close that I realized each snowflake was actually beautiful and unique. Today I learned I've never seen a snowflake in person. I live in Wisconsin and own a couple of black wool coats. Usually snowflakes don't melt right away when they land on the wool, and the intricate patterns really stand out against the black. I love it. They are so beautiful. I don't know if this counts but I always thought that O'Reilly's Auto Parts was a restaurant. I'd beg my dad to eat there. He eventually caved and took me to the auto store, and I told him that he warned them that I was coming and had them change the whole restaurant to an auto parts store just to mess with me. It's got auto parts right in the title. So when I found out about Father Christmas, I thought that meant reindeer weren't real. It was only when I thought my boyfriend was taking the mick at the zoo saying let's go and see the reindeer that I found out the real truth. Wait until you find out about elves. Semicolon. Not me, but my roommate thought turnips were a fictional vegetable until college. He kept looking for them, but they'd never turn up. I thought measles and mumps were made up diseases when I was younger. I had never heard of anyone that had them. My sole knowledge of them was from the Shel Silverstein poem I have the measles and the mumps, a gash, a rash and purple bumps. I had always wondered why I never got interesting sicknesses when I was a kid. Just colds and maybe a flu every now and then. I realize now that was all very much on purpose. Not me, and I'm probably late to this, but I moved to Key West and am now dating a girl who grew up there. For those not familiar, Key West is a 6 square mile island 90 miles south of Miami, so agriculture is literally non-existent there. She told me a story about her younger brother, who when he was about 5-6 years old went on a road trip up to Orlando with the family. They passed a field and he was looking out the window and saw a field full of cows. He looks up at his mom and in disbelief says cows are real. He legit though cows were like unicorns, made up creatures. Sonic, the fast food restaurant. My reasoning was that I had never seen one around where I live, and the background of the commercials weren't recognizable areas. I was stupid as hell. I didn't know that Carl's Jr. and Hardee's were the same chain. When I first saw Hardee's I was like wow, Carl's Jr. could sue the shit out of them. They use the same star logo and everything. Other religions. I was very sheltered and thought everyone was Christian, because duh. I knew about other religions. I just was super proud that we had obviously chosen the correct one. Also, was shocked when I found out some of my relatives were agnostic atheist. I just assumed my entire family believed the same thing. The fun thing about growing up Jewish is you never for a second believe that everyone is Jewish. Pirates. I literally thought that they were fictional beings until I was around 22. To be fair, the pirates that are popular in fiction aren't exactly accurate depictions. But you have heard of those. The Tasmanian Devil. Thought Looney Tunes just made it up. To be fair, I was fascinated when I finally saw real ones when I was 8. They're actually way cuter than Taz. Emo. Electrolytes. I thought that they were made up by sports drink companies to sell more drinks. How else would crops grow? Yeah, they're what plants crave, after all. Me being adopted. My brother didn't know he was adopted until he was 16. He is my half brother, and we had no idea since my dad raised us both by himself. We just thought our mom had left when I was born and that was it. But what actually had happened was she had gotten pregnant by some meth head while she was with my father, and my father didn't know until he was born. She told him she was giving up my brother for adoption and my dad went berserk, got custody of my brother and kept it a secret for years. He gets a call from my drunk mother on his 16th birthday and she broke the news. Completely shattered him and caused a lot of trust issues. Flat Earthers. I'm convinced that flat earthers consist of 100 people with the 100k trolling them for the lulz. My boyfriend, from UK thought polygraphs were fake until I, from USA, mentioned that our police use them in criminal investigations. He literally was like lie detector tests are real, and it's legal. That was the day I learned that they are mainly only used in the US. And their results are not admissible in court. I had the opposite. I thought jackalopes, the rabbit with antlers, were real until I was 19 years old. I just thought they were native to New Mexico, Arizona or something. They seemed like such a real animal. Who thought a cool mythical animal to create is a rabbit with antlers? You have total freedom to make up whatever you want and you choose that? I was today years old when I leaned jackalopes aren't real. I grew up in Los Angeles, so I went to Disneyland once or twice a year throughout my childhood. When I visited the East Coast for the first time, I discovered that fireflies are real. I was shocked. I thought they were some magical insect that Walt Disney dreamed up, as he had fake ones twinkling in the trees in Disneyland. I also grew up near Disneyland and I thought everyone had a Disneyland just down the freeway from their home. Totally thought Transylvania was a made up place for years. Vampires are pretend, and they come from Transylvania, so it was logical that the place they came from wasn't real. The streets always being wet at night time in movies. Being from AZ, I always thought that was bullshit. I used to think, why are the streets always wet like it had just rained in movies? Streets are always dry as duck at night. Then I went on a trip to MO when I was older and the streets were wet there at night and I was thinking, wow, just like in the movies. During recent weather, I said something about wondering what people would do if it actually snowed since they can't even drive in the rain. My 6-year-old thought snow didn't actually exist. I used to think people only died if they were murdered, did it themselves. I was 7, maybe 8 when I found out one day my grandparents would die of old age and I cried for a long time. BC, I thought people just lived forever until they got murdered. Shakey's Pizza. I always saw it in movies and assumed it was like the 555 number thing. That is until I was 25 and drove past one with my now wife and was like, what the duck, they're real. I then had to explain that I always thought they were just in movies while she stared at me like I was an idiot. Hippos being dangerous. There's a ride at Disneyland called the Jungle Cruise, where you go through jungle scenes in a boat and the skipper tells jokes about the audio animatronic animals. In the bit with the hippos, they'll say the hippos are going to rush the boat and then shoot a cap gun to scare them off. As a kid I thought this was another joke, because obviously hippos can't hurt you, right? I was in my 20s before I found out the truth, which is that hippos will duck you up. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.